The sun was just peeking over the Austin skyline when phones across the tech world started buzzing with notifications. It was 6:47 a.m. and Elon Musk had done it again, thrown a curveball that would set the entire industry on fire. His post on X was simple yet explosive. Excited to announce our keynote speaker for the Global AI and Sustainable Tech Conference, President Trump. Time for real dialogue about America's tech future. Within minutes, the post spread like wildfire. Tech journalists who were just settling in with their morning coffee spat out their drinks and scrambled to verify if this was another one of Musk's jokes. But it wasn't. The official conference website had already been updated with Trump's photo alongside other speakers. In a downtown San Francisco office, a young software developer showed her team leader the announcement on her phone. "Is this for real?" she asked, her voice mixing disbelief with curiosity. Around her, other developers stopped typing, their fingers frozen above their keyboards. The usual buzz of conversation in the open-plan office was replaced by the sound of notification pings as more people discovered the news. Meanwhile, in the conference planning office in Austin, phones were ringing off the hook. The event coordinator, who had been preparing for months, watched in amazement as registration numbers suddenly skyrocketed. People who had been on the fence about attending were now desperate for tickets, while others who had already registered were sending heated emails demanding refunds. News channels quickly picked up the story. On morning shows, hosts who were supposed to be discussing the latest smartphone releases found themselves diving into heated debates about the implications of this unexpected collaboration. Tech analysts who had been booked to talk about artificial intelligence were now being asked about the political ramifications of Musk's decision. A prominent venture capitalist from Silicon Valley, known for keeping his political views private, broke his usual silence with a thoughtful post. "Whether we agree or disagree with this choice, we can't deny it's forcing us to confront the divide between tech and traditional industries. Maybe that's exactly what we need." Back at the Tesla headquarters, Musk's team was working overtime. Their PR department, used to handling controversial announcements, found themselves in uncharted territory. The conference, originally planned as a showcase for sustainable technology and AI advancement, had suddenly transformed into something much bigger. Social media exploded with reactions. Employees at major tech companies started internal discussions about whether they should still participate. In one particularly heated thread, a senior engineer wrote, "This isn't about politics anymore. It's about whether we're willing to have difficult conversations about tech's role in society." By midday, the story had evolved. Someone leaked an email showing that the invitation hadn't been a sudden decision. Musk had apparently been planning this for months, carefully crafting the proposal to ensure it would appeal to Trump's interest in maintaining his relevance in the tech world. The email revealed thoughtful consideration about how to create a genuine dialogue rather than just a publicity stunt. The timing was particularly interesting. With artificial intelligence reshaping industries and sustainable technology becoming increasingly crucial, bringing in a figure known for skepticism about both created an unusual opportunity for meaningful discussion. Musk's team had apparently considered several other controversial figures before settling on Trump, believing his presence would force the tech community to defend their innovations and ideas more rigorously. Local businesses in Austin started preparing for what they expected to be an unprecedented event. Hotels were suddenly flooded with reservations. A local diner owner, who had been worried about the slow season, smiled as he watched reservation requests pour in. "Never thought I'd see the day when Trump supporters and tech bros would be fighting over my tables," he chuckled to his regular customers. The real surprise came from the smaller tech companies. Instead of immediately taking sides, many chose to wait and watch. A startup founder in Austin posted a video that went viral saying, "Look, we can either boycott and stay in our bubble, or we can show up and demonstrate why our vision for the future matters. I choose to show up." As the day drew to a close, the initial shock began to transform into curiosity. What would Trump say to a room full of tech innovators? How would Musk handle the inevitable tensions? The conference, still months away, had already achieved something remarkable. It had gotten people who would never normally engage with each other to start talking. In a late-night interview, when asked if he was worried about the conference becoming too politically charged, Musk replied with his characteristic half-smile The future of technology isn't just about coding and patents. It's about understanding each other. Sometimes the best innovations come from the most uncomfortable conversations. As people headed home that evening, the buzz hadn't died down. In coffee shops, gyms, and dinner tables across the country, people were still discussing the news. A high school teacher in Ohio reported that for the first time in years, her students were actively debating the relationship between technology and politics. The day ended with another post from Musk. Change doesn't come from echo chambers. Day one of many interesting days ahead. Stay tuned. Below the post, hundreds of thousands of comments poured in, each person trying to predict what would happen next. But one thing was certain, the tech world would never be quite the same after this day. The morning after Musk's announcement, Silicon Valley woke up to what felt like a different world. The usual morning traffic along the 101 highway was filled with tech workers calling into emergency meetings instead of listening to their usual podcasts. Major companies were scrambling to take positions, and the pressure to respond was intense. A young product manager at a leading social media company watched her inbox fill up with internal messages. Her team members wanted guidance. Should they still present their new AI project at the conference? The company's leadership had scheduled an all-hands meeting for noon, but rumors were already circulating about potential withdrawal from the event. In one of San Francisco's busy coffee shops, two startup founders huddled over their laptops, frantically rewriting their conference presentations. "We can't just show charts and graphs anymore," one said, stirring his now-cold coffee. "This is going to be about showing how our tech connects with everyone, not just the usual tech crowd." The media coverage was relentless. Morning shows had tech reporters sitting alongside political analysts, each trying to predict what this meant for the future of the industry. One veteran tech journalist, known for his balanced coverage, appeared on 3 different networks before lunch, explaining why this moment was different from previous tech politics crossovers. "Look," he said on his final appearance, "we're not just talking about a controversial speaker at a tech conference. We're talking about 2 of the most influential figures in American life coming together at a time when technology is reshaping society. The stakes are higher than they've ever been." Social media platforms were struggling to handle the volume of discussions. Trending topics kept shifting between #TechConference, #MuskTrump, and various other hashtags as people debated the implications. Content moderators found themselves working overtime to manage the flood of comments and posts. A popular tech YouTuber posted a video that quickly went viral. Sitting in his home studio, he spoke directly to his millions of subscribers. "I've been covering tech for 10 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Half my audience wants me to boycott the conference, the other half wants me to go and document everything. Here's what I think." His measured response, suggesting that engagement might be better than boycott, sparked its own wave of discussions. Comment sections filled with surprisingly thoughtful debates about the role of technology in bridging social divides. Meanwhile, in Austin, conference organizers were dealing with practical challenges. Hotels were reporting a surge in bookings from both tech industry professionals and political supporters. Local restaurants began planning special menus, trying to cater to both Silicon Valley vegans and traditional conservatives. A local food truck owner laughed as he told a reporter, "I'm adding both avocado toast and classic burgers to my menu. Maybe good food is what brings people together." His comment, though lighthearted, was picked up by several news outlets as a symbol of the potential for finding common ground. The corporate response continued to evolve throughout the day. Some companies tried to stay neutral, issuing carefully worded statements about observing developments. Others took stronger positions. A major cloud computing provider announced they were doubling their booth size at the conference, explicitly stating their commitment to dialogue across divides. In contrast, 3 prominent AI startups jointly announced their withdrawal from the conference. Their press release cited concerns about the direction and focus of the event. Within hours, their competitors seized the opportunity, quickly booking the newly available exhibition spaces. The international tech community also weighed in. European tech leaders expressed mixture of fascination and concern. A prominent British tech entrepreneur posted, "American tech events are always entertaining, but this is taking it to a new level. The whole world is watching." As evening approached on the West Coast, attention turned to Trump's camp, which had maintained an unusual silence. No posts, no statements, not even off-the-record comments from aides. This silence seemed to amplify the speculation. Tech forums were filled with theories about what it might mean. A veteran Silicon Valley investor shared an interesting perspective in his newsletter. In my 30 years in tech, I've seen countless attempts to bridge the gap between technology and traditional industries. But this is different. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, and maybe that's exactly why it might work. The day's events had a surprising effect on tech company employees. Internal message boards, usually focused on coding problems or office issues, were filled with discussions about the broader role of technology in society. A software engineer's post went internal viral. Whatever happens, at least we're finally talking about who we're really building this technology for. As the second day drew to a close, Musk remained relatively quiet, only posting a cryptic emoji that received over 1 million interactions. The lack of additional information left everyone speculating about what might come next. In small tech offices and giant corporate headquarters alike, people ended their day with more questions than answers. The only certainty was that tomorrow would bring new developments in this unprecedented convergence of tech and politics. A popular tech podcast summed it up in their evening episode: whether you love it or hate it, this has forced every one of us to think about what we really believe about technology's role in bringing people together. Maybe that was the point all along. Nobody expected the response to come at dawn. While most of Silicon Valley was still asleep, Trump's simple message appeared on social media. Thank you for the invitation, Elon. Looking forward to discussing America's tech future. See you in Austin. The tech world's reaction was instant and intense. A junior developer in San Francisco, checking his phone over his morning coffee, actually dropped his cup. I thought I was still dreaming, he later told his team. I had to read it 3 times to make sure it was real. What made the acceptance even more surprising was its tone. No boasting, no attacks, no controversial statements, just a straightforward acceptance. The unusual modesty of the message led to intense speculation. News channels immediately began analyzing every word, looking for hidden meanings. Behind the scenes, the real story was unfolding. Trump's advisors had been working quietly for weeks, preparing for this moment. A member of his team later revealed that Trump had spent hours in briefings about artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and digital transformation. He asked questions I never expected him to ask. The advisor shared. He really wanted to understand this stuff. The preparation wasn't just technical. Trump had insisted on meeting with people from industries affected by technological change. He sat down with factory workers whose jobs had evolved with automation, farmers using AI for crop management, and truck drivers concerned about self-driving vehicles. Each conversation shaped his understanding of how technology was changing American life. In Silicon Valley, tech companies scrambled to respond. A CEO of a major tech firm called an emergency board meeting, only to find half his board members already in another emergency meeting about the same topic. We planned for either a rejection or a controversial acceptance, he admitted. This measured response wasn't in our scenario planning. The media coverage took an unexpected turn when footage leaked of Trump visiting a renewable energy facility in Texas. The video showed him asking detailed questions about solar panel efficiency and storage solutions. A facility worker who had expected a brief photo op was surprised to find himself in a lengthy technical discussion with the former president. Social media platforms saw something unusual happening. Instead of the expected explosion of angry posts and arguments, people were sharing thoughtful analyses and asking questions. A trending topic emerged, #TechBridge, with people from both tech and traditional industries sharing hopes for meaningful dialogue. Local businesses in Austin began preparing for the event in unique ways. A family-owned restaurant near the convention center created a special menu combining Silicon Valley health food trends with traditional Texas barbecue. If they can bridge the political divide, we can bridge the culinary one, the owner joked. The conference organizing team faced unprecedented challenges. How do you set up a room where tech entrepreneurs and Trump supporters would sit side by side? A young event planner had a brilliant idea, mixing the seating arrangements to encourage conversation between different groups. We're not just planning a conference anymore, she explained. We're designing a social experiment. Trump's team made another surprising move by reaching out to critics in the tech industry. They invited several prominent tech leaders who had publicly opposed him to private meetings before the conference. "We're not asking you to change your views," the invitation read. "We're asking you to share them directly." The preparation extended to presentation style. Trump worked with communication experts to learn how to explain complex ideas simply without oversimplifying them. His team brought in tech industry veterans to help him understand not just the technology, but the culture of Silicon Valley. Environmental groups watched in amazement as Trump's team requested briefings on climate technology and sustainable energy solutions. A climate scientist who participated in these briefings was cautiously optimistic. He asked tough questions, but he actually listened to the answers. "That's more than I expected." As news of the serious preparation spread, the tone of public discussion began to shift. People who had dismissed the event as a publicity stunt started wondering if something more significant was happening. A popular tech blogger wrote, "Maybe we're all about to be surprised." The effect rippled through both Silicon Valley and traditional industries. Companies that had planned to boycott the event began reconsidering. A tech startup founder captured the mood. "If he's willing to step out of his comfort zone, maybe we should step out of ours." Security teams from both sides worked together to create a safe environment for dialogue. They'd faced unique challenges: how to protect a former president while maintaining the open, collaborative atmosphere tech conferences are known for. Their solution involved innovative use of technology alongside traditional security measures. As the conference drew closer, something unexpected happened in online discussions. People began sharing stories of how technology had both helped and hurt their communities, looking for common ground. A factory worker's post about learning to work with robots went viral, drawing responses from both tech workers and traditionalists. Hotels in Austin reported an interesting trend. People were requesting to be paired with roommates from the other side of the tech-traditional divide. A hotel manager noted, "They're saying if they're going to talk about bridging gaps, they might as well start early." The final surprise came when Trump's team released his pre-conference schedule. Instead of the usual political meetings, it was filled with visits to tech startups, research labs, and training centers. Each visit was chosen to highlight collaboration between traditional industries and new technology. As the day of the conference approached, a sense of possibility replaced the initial skepticism. A venture capitalist summed it up. "We're about to find out if the biggest disruption in tech isn't a new gadget or app, but a new way of talking to each other about the future." The Austin Convention Center had never seen anything quite like this. At 5 a.m., hours before sunrise, security teams were already conducting their final sweeps. A mix of Secret Service agents and private security personnel moved through the building with practiced precision, checking every corner, every possible entry point, and every technical system. The head of Convention Center Operations, who had overseen hundreds of events over 2 decades, shook his head in amazement. "Never seeing anything like this," he said to his deputy while reviewing the security protocols. "It's like hosting the Super Bowl and a UN summit at the same time." By 7 a.m., the first food trucks and vendors were setting up in designated areas around the building. A local coffee cart owner, positioned near the main entrance, watched as security dogs sniffed around his equipment. "They even checked my coffee beans," he chuckled. "But hey, I'm not complaining. This might be my busiest day ever." The real spectacle began around 8 a.m. when attendees started arriving. The scene outside the convention center looked like a social experiment come to life. Tech entrepreneurs in hoodies and sneakers stood in line next to political supporters in suits and red caps. A group of young programmers with laptops tucked under their arms found themselves chatting with retired business owners about the future of AI. "It's weird," said a software developer from California, adjusting his company lanyard. "Yesterday I was coding in my quiet office, and today I'm explaining machine learning to someone who's never used a smartphone. But you know what? They're actually interested in learning." The atmosphere inside was even more striking. The main hall had been transformed into a high-tech wonderland, with cutting-edge displays and demonstrations everywhere. Virtual reality stations sat next to sustainable energy exhibits. A hydrogen-powered prototype car drew crowds of both tech enthusiasts and traditional auto industry veterans. Security had created an intricate system of zones and checkpoints, but something unexpected was happening at these forced waiting points. People were talking. A venture capitalist found himself in a 20-minute conversation with a farmer about automated farming technology. A climate scientist ended up explaining carbon capture methods to a group of oil industry representatives. The press area was buzzing with activity. Journalists from tech blogs sat shoulder to shoulder with political reporters, each trying to understand the other's perspective on the day's events. A veteran political correspondent was overheard asking a tech reporter to explain blockchain, while a young tech blogger got a crash course in political protocol. Around noon, an unexpected moment caught everyone's attention. A group of college students who had won tickets through a coding competition ran into some Trump supporters near the AI ethics panel. Instead of tension, they ended up having an impromptu discussion about job automation and its impact on traditional industries. The convention center's massive digital displays showed a countdown to Trump's speech, but the real action was happening on the floor. Tech companies had been instructed to make their presentations more accessible to a general audience, and the results were fascinating. Complex technologies were being explained in simple terms, leading to genuine exchanges of ideas. A robotics company's booth drew particular attention. They had set up a demonstration showing how automation could work alongside human workers rather than replacing them. The booth became an unexpected meeting point where union representatives and tech innovators found common ground. "I came here expecting conflict," admitted a union leader from Michigan, watching a robot and human working together in the demonstration. "Instead, I'm seeing how this stuff might actually help our workers stay safer on the job." The food courts became another surprising mixer. Food truck vendors had created special menus trying to cater to everyone, leading to amusing scenes of Silicon Valley vegans sharing tables with barbecue enthusiasts. One food truck's Unity platter, half plant-based, half traditional, became an unexpected hit and symbol of the day. As afternoon approached, the energy in the building shifted. Trump's arrival was imminent, and everyone could feel it. Secret Service presence increased and movement patterns in the building subtly changed. Yet even this produced unexpected moments of connection. A young startup founder, stuck at a security checkpoint, ended up in conversation with a Secret Service agent about cybersecurity. "Never thought I'd be giving tech advice to the Secret Service," she later told her team. But they were genuinely interested in our encryption methods. The mix of audiences created some amusing technical difficulties. The convention center's Wi-Fi system struggled with the unprecedented combination of tech professionals live streaming everything and political supporters trying to share photos. The IT team scrambled to maintain connections, leading to some good-natured jokes about the need for better infrastructure. By late afternoon, the main hall was packed. People who would never normally be in the same room together sat side by side, waiting for the speech to begin. A tech writer observed, "It's like watching two parallel universes collide, but instead of chaos, we're getting conversation." Even the protest area outside, carefully designated by security, became an unexpected forum for dialogue. Protesters and supporters found themselves discussing the actual issues rather than just shouting slogans. A local police officer noted it was the most civil protest scene he'd witnessed in years. As the minutes ticked down to Trump's appearance, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Nobody knew exactly what would happen next, but something had already changed. The simple act of putting all these different people in one place had created thousands of tiny bridges across America's cultural divide. A senior tech executive summed it up perfectly. "Whatever happens next, today showed us something important. When you actually put people together in a room, they're a lot better at finding common ground than anyone expected." The main hall of the Austin Convention Center fell silent as Trump took the stage. The usual bold entrance music was replaced by something softer, more thoughtful, the first sign that this would be different from his typical appearances. Even his walk to the podium seemed measured, deliberate, as if he understood the weight of this particular moment. A young software engineer from Seattle whispered to her colleague, "Is it just me, or does he look nervous?" It wasn't just her imagination. For perhaps the first time in his public speaking career, Trump appeared to be genuinely aware that he was stepping into unfamiliar territory. The audience was a sea of contrasts. Rows of tech workers in casual wear sat next to business people in suits. Some wore red caps, others had company hoodies, but all eyes were fixed on the stage. The tension in the room was almost physical. You could feel thousands of people holding their breath, waiting to see which version of Trump would appear today. He adjusted the microphone, looked down at his notes, another unusual sight, and began speaking. His voice was quieter than usual, more conversational. "You know," he started, "30 years ago, when I was building towers, nobody talked about artificial intelligence. Nobody worried about climate change. The world was simpler then, but simple doesn't always mean better." The audience stirred. This wasn't the bombastic tone they'd expected. A venture capitalist from Silicon Valley sat up straighter in his chair, suddenly more interested. A group of tech reporters in the press section exchanged glances, their fingers hovering over their keyboards. "I spent the last few months learning," Trump continued, "really learning about what's happening in technology. And I have to tell you, some of it scared me. But fear comes from not understanding. So I asked questions. I listened. Something politicians don't do enough of these days." The hall remained silent, but the quality of the silence had changed. It wasn't tense anymore, it was attentive. People who had come ready to protest or cheer found themselves simply listening. He spoke about visiting a renewable energy facility in Texas, describing how a former oil worker explained solar panel technology to him. He talked about watching AI systems help doctors diagnose diseases faster than ever before. Each example seemed carefully chosen to bridge the gap between traditional industries and new technology. "We talk about making America great again," he said, pausing for effect, "but maybe we need to think about making America smart again. Smart about how we use technology. Smart about how we protect jobs while embracing innovation. Smart about how we lead the world in both." A tech executive who had threatened to boycott the conference was now recording every word on his phone. Next to him, a supporter who had come expecting typical rally rhetoric sat with his arms uncrossed, nodding thoughtfully. The speech took an even more surprising turn when Trump acknowledged his past skepticism about climate change. "I was wrong," he said simply. The words hung in the air for a moment. "Not about everything," he added with a hint of his familiar smile, "but about this. The data is clear. The question isn't whether climate change is real, it's how American innovation can solve it." In the audience, a climate scientist wiped away tears. She hadn't expected to be moved, hadn't even wanted to attend. But hearing these words from this particular speaker carried a weight she hadn't anticipated. Trump spoke about the need for bipartisan cooperation in technological advancement. He praised competitors by name, something he rarely did. He talked about the importance of international collaboration in science while maintaining American leadership. Each point seemed designed to challenge both his supporters and critics to think differently. The speech wasn't perfect. There were moments when the old Trump peeked through. A familiar boast here, a wandering tangent there. But these moments only made the overall effect more authentic. This wasn't a completely different person on stage, it was the same person showing a different side. Near the end, he addressed the elephant in the room. "Some of you came here today expecting to hate what I'd say. Others came expecting to cheer no matter what I said. But I hope all of you came ready to think. Because that's what this is about, thinking differently about our future." The conclusion was brief but powerful. "America's greatest strength has always been innovation," he said, "not just in technology, but in how we think, how we work together, how we solve problems. Today, in this room, we have the people who can solve any problem if we choose to work together." When he finished, the applause started slowly, uncertainly, then built into something genuine. It wasn't the usual partisan reaction, wild cheering from supporters and silence from critics. Instead, it was thoughtful appreciation from an audience that had just witnessed something they never expected. A reporter would later write that the most remarkable thing wasn't what Trump said, but how the audience received it. People weren't jumping to react or argue. They were sitting there, processing, thinking. In a world of instant reactions and hot takes, this moment of collective reflection felt revolutionary. As Trump left the stage, the hall buzzed with conversation, but not the kind anyone had predicted. Tech workers were discussing points of agreement with political conservatives. Traditional industry representatives were engaging with startup founders about collaboration opportunities. Musk, watching from the side of the stage, allowed himself a small smile. Whatever happened next, something had shifted today. A door had been opened that couldn't easily be closed. A college student studying computer science perhaps summed it up best in a social media post that would soon go viral. Came expecting a circus, found a conversation. Maybe that's what we needed all along. The hours immediately following Trump's speech were unlike anything the tech world had ever experienced. As attendees filed out of the main hall, their phones buzzed constantly with notifications. The stock market was going wild, social media was exploding, and news outlets were scrambling to make sense of what had just happened. In the convention center's press room, journalists frantically typed on their laptops, trying to capture the historic moment. A veteran political reporter stayed at his screen, deleted his entire draft, and started over. "I've covered politics for 30 years, he told his colleague, and I just had to delete my first draft because I realized I was writing from old assumptions. The impact hit the financial markets like a tidal wave. Trading algorithms, programmed to react to keywords in Trump's speeches, seemed confused by the unexpected tone and content. A stock trader in New York watched in amazement as tech stocks and traditional energy companies both started climbing. It's like the market can't decide if this is good or bad news, so it's deciding it's all good news, he explained to his bewildered intern. Outside the convention center, the scene was equally surreal. Groups of people who would normally avoid each other were engaged in animated conversations. A coal industry executive was exchanging contact information with a solar power entrepreneur. "Never thought I'd say this," the executive admitted, "but maybe we can figure out this transition together." Social media platforms were nearly overwhelmed by the volume of discussions. Content moderators noticed something unusual. The tone of conversations was different. Instead of the usual angry arguments, people were sharing thoughtful reactions and asking questions. A moderator in California noted that she hadn't had to remove a single hate speech comment in the past hour, a new record. In Silicon Valley, tech companies held emergency meetings to discuss the implications. A major AI company's leadership team gathered in their conference room, watching recordings of the speech for the third time. "We need to completely revise our public outreach strategy," the CEO told her team. The conversation just changed fundamentally. The impact rippled through Wall Street as well. Trading was so volatile that some platforms had to pause certain algorithms. Traditional energy company stocks rose alongside green technology shares. Market analysts struggled to explain how companies that were supposed to be competitors were all seeing gains. A popular tech YouTuber went live from his hotel room, still processing what he'd witnessed. "Guys, I came here ready to be angry, ready to protest," he told his millions of viewers. "Instead, I'm sitting here thinking about how to bridge gaps I didn't even want to acknowledge existed before today." In Washington, D.C., political advisors from both parties were burning up the phone lines. Nobody knew quite how to react. A senior policy advisor was overheard saying, "When both sides are confused about whether to be happy or angry, something interesting is happening." Back in Austin, local restaurants were packed with conference attendees continuing their discussions over dinner. A barbecue joint owner noticed something unusual. People weren't clustering in their usual groups. Tech workers sat with energy industry veterans, investors chatted with climate activists, and everyone seemed to be really listening to each other. Online forums and discussion boards lit up with analysis. A Reddit thread about the speech's technical accuracy grew to thousands of comments, with experts from various fields weighing in. Surprisingly, the discussion remained civil, with users actually changing their minds when presented with new information, a rare sight on the internet. Television news coverage was equally confused about how to frame the story. Networks had prepared graphics and talking points for various scenarios, but none had anticipated this one. A news producer in New York sent a memo to her team: "Forget the usual format. This isn't left versus right anymore. This is something new." The business world scrambled to adapt. Companies that had prepared statements either condemning or praising the speech found themselves rewriting everything. A PR executive admitted, "We had 2 press releases ready to go, one positive, one negative. Now we're writing a third because neither of our prepared responses fits what actually happened." Tech industry leaders who had boycotted the event were now quietly asking for recordings of the speech. Some began posting thoughtful responses on social media, acknowledging that maybe they had missed an opportunity by not attending. As evening fell, new hashtags started trending. Hashtag TechUnity and hashtag InnovateTogether replaced the more confrontational tags from earlier in the day. People shared stories of conversations they'd had with those they'd previously considered opponents. A small business owner from Ohio posted a video that went viral. Standing outside the convention center, he said, "I came here thinking tech was the enemy of traditional business. I'm leaving with 3 potential partnerships and a whole new way of thinking about the future." In the hotel bars of Austin that night, the conversations continued. People who had arrived as adversaries were leaving as potential collaborators. An oil industry veteran raised a toast with a group of environmental scientists, saying, "To proving an old dog can learn new tricks." The final surprise came late in the evening when both Musk and Trump posted similar messages on their social media accounts. Both spoke about the importance of listening and learning from those we disagree with. The identical timing and similar message led to speculation about a coordinated effort to maintain the day's momentum. As the day drew to a close, a sense of possibility hung in the air. A young programmer captured the mood in a late-night post. "Today wasn't about right or wrong, winning or losing. It was about realizing that the future is too important for us to stay in our separate corners. Maybe that's the real innovation we needed." In the weeks following the historic tech conference, the ripples of change spread far beyond Austin. What had started as a controversial publicity stunt had evolved into something nobody expected. A genuine shift in how different parts of America talked to each other about the future. The first surprising development came from an unlikely place, a small town in Michigan. A former auto manufacturing plant, which had stood empty for years, suddenly became the center of attention. A group of tech investors who had attended the conference partnered with local industry leaders to convert it into a training center for advanced manufacturing. "We're not just teaching people to code," explained the project leader, a former factory worker turned tech entrepreneur. "We're showing them how their existing skills translate to new technology. These people know manufacturing better than any Silicon Valley engineer. They just need the bridge to the future." The collaboration trend spread quickly. In Wyoming, a renewable energy company partnered with coal miners to develop more efficient energy storage systems. The miners' deep understanding of energy infrastructure proved invaluable. A gruff mining foreman summed it up perfectly. "Turns out we're not as different as everyone thought. We all want reliable energy, we just needed to agree on how to make it better." Musk's companies saw unexpected benefits from the conference. Tesla's new truck division hired dozens of traditional auto workers, incorporating their practical knowledge into the design process. "These guys know what real truckers need," a Tesla engineer admitted. "We had the technology, but they had the experience. Together, we're building something better than either of us could alone." Social media platforms noticed a lasting change in how people discuss technology and progress. The usual angry debates about job automation were replaced by more nuanced conversations. A trending video showed a factory worker teaching a programmer about manufacturing safety, while the programmer explained how AI could make the worker's job safer. The education sector caught the wave of change. Technical schools and community colleges reported a surge in enrollment, particularly from mid-career workers. A community college in Ohio created a new program combining traditional trade skills with modern technology. "We're not asking people to abandon their expertise," the program director explained. "We're helping them add to it." Traditional business leaders who had attended the conference began approaching tech companies differently. Instead of fighting change, they looked for ways to adapt. A farming equipment dealer in Kansas partnered with a drone company to help farmers use precision agriculture techniques. "My customers trust me," he said. "Now I can help them step into the future without feeling left behind." The political impact was subtle but significant. Local government meetings about technology and development became less confrontational. In a small town in Pennsylvania, a meeting about building a data center turned into a productive discussion about job training and community benefits. The mayor noted, "People stopped talking about winning or losing and started talking about working together." Environmental initiatives found new allies in unexpected places. Oil industry veterans began investing in clean energy research, bringing their deep understanding of energy infrastructure to new technologies. A solar power startup hired former oilfield workers to help design more efficient installation methods. They understand large-scale energy projects better than anyone, the company's founder acknowledged. The media landscape shifted too. News coverage of technology issues became more nuanced. Instead of "Tech threatens traditional jobs," headlines read, "How traditional skills shape new technology." A popular news show created a weekly segment featuring collaborations between old and new industries. Even the language people used began to change. Terms like disruption and replacement gave way to evolution and integration. A linguistics professor noted that social media posts about technology had become more collaborative and less confrontational in their tone. The gaming industry found an unexpected opportunity. A small studio created a simulation game where players had to balance traditional industry knowledge with technological innovation. It became a surprise hit, with teachers using it to show students how different skills could work together. Investment patterns shifted as well. Venture capital firms started looking for companies that bridged the gap between traditional and new technologies. A VC firm in Boston created a special fund for startups that combined old-world expertise with new technology. "The future isn't about out with the old, in with the new," the fund manager explained. "It's about building bridges between them." Local communities felt the impact in practical ways. A small town in Texas saw its downtown revitalize when a tech company moved in, but not in the way everyone feared. Instead of displacing local businesses, the company worked with them. The local diner's owner beamed as she described how her business adapted. "They helped me set up online ordering, but I taught them what real community means." The conference's lasting legacy wasn't in any single project or partnership. It was in the thousands of small conversations happening across the country. People who had seen each other as threats began seeing each other as resources. A retired factory supervisor started a popular blog about combining traditional manufacturing knowledge with new technology. As the dust settled, even the skeptics had to admit something had changed. A wise old union leader perhaps said it best, "For years, we thought it was us versus them. Turns out, there never needed to be a versus. We just needed to learn how to talk to each other." The final proof came 3 months after the conference. A national survey showed a significant shift in how Americans viewed the relationship between traditional industries and new technology. The fear had been replaced by something else: hope. Not blind optimism, but a practical hope based on seeing real examples of collaboration and progress. A high school student's essay about the conference went viral. "My grandpa was a factory worker, and I want to be a programmer. Thanks to what happened in Austin, we finally understand each other's worlds." That's not just technology, that's progress.